In 2003, the White Stripes released the album Elephant, which contained the iconic song Seven Nation Army. 12 years earlier, Nirvana released the album Nevermind, which held the song Smells Like Teen Spirit. 11 years before that, AC/DC released Back in Black, which featured the hit song Back in Black. 13 years before that, Jimi Hendrix released the album Are You Experienced, which has Purple Haze on it. In 1958, Chuck Berry released the single Johnny Be Good. These songs, though they all sound different, are rock. Rock has many different subgenres and sounds, including indie rock, alt rock, hard rock, psychedelic rock, classic rock, prog rock, punk rock, rap rock, pop rock, and many more. But where did all these genres develop from? Over the decades, rock has taken many forms, but it does all come from the same roots. So, what makes rock rock? So, welcome back to the Vinyl and Vision podcast. If you're a returning listener, thanks for coming back. If this is your first episode, then thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, check out my other content. Let's dive into today's subject, rock and roll, and what the first rock and roll song was. So, addressing that second topic first, the first rock and roll song, was released in 1948. But another source of mine says 1949. Yet another says 46. But other people say 51. So when was the first rock and roll song really released? And what made it rock and roll? Oxford Languages defines rock and roll as a type of popular dance music originating in the 1950s, characterized by a heavy beat and simple melodies. When you listen to it, you'll hear that it usually has guitar, bass, and drums, but can feature other instruments. Most of the songs that we're going to be discussing today have lots of brass instruments and like saxophone, because rock and roll is very close to jazz. Genres that influence rock include jazz, as I said, R&B, and country music, and each provided different flavor and style to rock and roll. R&B gave rock and roll its strong backbeat. Country gave storytelling in the lyrics, and jazz added improv and solos. Overall, rock and roll was a soup with all these different ingredients, creating a new genre of music. So that we know that rock and roll has a strong 2 and 4 beat, simple melody, some storytelling, maybe some solos. So Johnny Be Good would be a perfect example of rock and roll. A story in the lyrics, snare on 2 and 4 to emphasize the beat, a solo, and a simple riff that works well within the context of the song. Now that I've discussed characteristics of rock and roll and a good example of a rock and roll song, I'm going to listen to popular candidates for the first rock and roll song, and I'm going to judge the songs based on 4 traits: a strong backbeat, storytelling, a simple melody, and a solo. If the song has 3 of the 4 criteria, then I'll classify it as a rock song. I'll start with the latest possible candidate and work back to the earliest. First up, we have Rocket 88, released in 1951. After listening to it, I observed that it has a simpler melody, especially than most jazz, a solo, and storytelling in the lyrics. It fulfills 3 of the 4 qualifications, so I would say that Rocket 88 is a rock and roll song. The next song was released in 1949, and it's called Saturday Night Fish Fry. It's a song that very close to being rock and roll, in my opinion. It has the storytelling, it has the simple melody, There's snare on 2 and 4, but that saying that it has a strong backbeat at 2 and 4, that's questionable in my opinion. The snare is not strong enough for me to confidently say that it is rock and roll. I think that it is a part of a genre called jump blues, which heavily influenced rock and roll. Next, we have another song released in 1949 called Rock the Joint. It's another song that's cited as the first rock and roll song by many people. Like the first two songs, it tells a story and has a simple melody, but like Saturday Night Fish Fry, it lacks the stress on beats 2 and 4 that Rocket 88 and other rock and roll songs have. But Rock the Joint is a song that could definitely be mistaken for rock and roll. It has, as I said, 2 of the 4 characteristics. Some people probably would say that it has the stress on 2 and 4 needed. That I denied it having that, but some people probably believe it does. It also has verse, chorus, verse, which is another structure in rock songs that's very common. So it's a song that is definitely one influential and two could be mistaken for rock and roll. Now we have the penultimate song, Good Rocking Tonight. Released in 1948, this song probably best fits the description of rock and roll. It lacks guitar, but it does have a solo, a strong backbeat, a very simple melody, and it tells a story. I think because it was released in 1948, it's the earliest rock and roll song that I've heard so far. Like I said, it fulfilled 4 of the 4 tenets that I made. It's rock and roll, in my opinion. As I said, that's the first thing. That's the but, and also so far because we have one last candidate. That's All Right by Arthur Crudup. This song was released in 1946, so it's the oldest legitimate candidate for first rock and roll song. After listening to it, I have to say that it is not a rock and roll song. No strong backbeat, no solo. Overall, just a blues song, in my opinion. As you noticed, I said my opinion a lot. In my opinion, in my opinion, in my opinion. I said that so many times because this is all opinion. Other people put songs that I put as more jazz or blues as rock and roll. And others put the songs that I put as rock and roll as jazz. So check out other videos, other opinions, try to form your own. Thanks for watching. Please watch some of my other videos. Keep your eyes out for part 2 about rock and roll going mainstream. And if I have the time in that video, it's transitioned to classic rock. Thanks for tuning in so much. And until next time, peace.